is that particular breach that happened in 2023. We looked at the background behind it, and it had to do with they called it weak MFA or MFA not really being employed correctly. Greg or Dimitri, am I off there with that? I don't know if there was more to that.
I didn't catch the end part of that, but I'm gonna go over it briefly.
Okay.
Introduce one.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and enable. Make sure you can share your screen out. Okay. There you go. Right. So Vinay, what we're hoping to do is we just started with the attack, the ADM, but we're gonna create an SM steps for it, and then we wanted to be able to use the other features, like as we create more ADMs, put them into an ADDB. We wanted to create policy, all those different things that you and Joe had talked about. We wanted to kind of flesh this out, and then get to the point later in the month where we got feedback from you, and you felt like, hey, this particular set of artifacts looks good. I would consider bringing it into our into your ADDB if you found it was detailed enough, had the right, it hit all the right areas. So that was the idea behind this.
Okay.
So if that sounds good to you, then Dimitri was going to start by talking about the ADDB he created.
Yeah, sounds good. Once you have reviewed it, we should be able to put it. I'm not looking for a perfect ADDB entry because things evolve over time. So if it provides enough value and information, we can start adding to ADDB.
Okay. All right. Dimitri, I'll pass it over to you.
Roger that. Hello, Vinay. Thank you for meeting with us again. We're going to be reviewing that Reddit breach I was talking about. Some more context behind it. What happened with the breach was one of the employees of Reddit they requested a multi-factor authentication through an SMS service like Verizon, AT&T, one of those. And when they did that, an attacker interceded the message and then used that verification to access the user's account, add alternate phone numbers, and then bar access from that user. So the attacker got access to their account, and then there was a whole data breach. So what we're focusing on here is on MITRE Attack Navigator. It was called multi-factor authentication interception. So we're going to be going over ways to mitigate getting breached that way through third parties, using more secure messaging services. We'll get into that right now. To start off, we have with the policy, the assumptions we have, we got provider uses end-to-end encrypted messaging services to send multi-factor authentication requests, such as WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram. So these mitigate the good portion of the ability of an attacker to intercede these messages, because normal cellular network carriers, they're just not like secure enough to prevent third parties from like interceding the messages and stuff. So this is a good way to mitigate that. The other one assumption we have is users register their cell phone number, host machine, and IP address with the provider. So this basically means if I'm an employee at Reddit, I'm gonna ensure Reddit is tracking the cell phone number I use whenever I'm requesting multi-factor authentication. They're tracking the host machine I should be accessing my account from, and then they're tracking the IP address that it should be connected from. We'll get into that later. That'll feed into some of the defenses. The defenses within our policy, we have any multi-factor authentication requests sent from provider to user must be returned with a verification of reception via the user's registered cell phone number. Basically, what this means is if I request multi-factor authentication, my device will send something back to the provider to let the network know that yes, this is the correct phone number got the message, and I'm acknowledging this message. That goes into another defense later. Second defense in our policy, user accounts are only authorized if accessing it through registered host machine. That's pretty straightforward. If you're not accessing your account from like the work computer you were given, it should bar your access and temporarily disable your account as a security measure. Getting into the actual preconditions right here. In order for this to work, in order for the attack to work, three things need to happen. First, the user has to request multi-factor authentication, and the device they're using for that is configured and used on a unsecure SMS network. So they're not using those secure messaging service we talked about before. They're not using WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram. They're using an unsecured network. That's the first thing that's happened. Second thing, obviously, they request a multi-factor authentication via SMS. Some give you the option through email. In this case, we're doing SMS. The third thing is the attacker uses third-party software, such as Sakari, for example, to reroute messages to their own cellular device. So basically, the user requests multi-factor authentication. They're on an unsecured network, and the attacker has a tool that allows them to intercept that message. From here, as we carry into the attack, let me just okay. So the first phase of the attack, the attacker intercedes a message, right? Someone requests a multi-factor authentication, an attacker intercedes it, and they either view the message or they get the message or reroute to their phone number. So either the employee or the user will receive the message a little late, or they won't receive it at all. Some preemptive defenses we have there are the user requests code. The user requests it on a secure app like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram. That's a preemptive defense, right? They shouldn't be requesting multi-factor authentication on unsecure networks. They should be using one of the apps you said before, which is the first line of defense right here. If the employee does not do that and they're using an unsecured network, another preemptive defense is the provider does not receive the confirmation of the user receiving that message. So that's where we went into before with the first defense and the policy. So this is basically because the user registered their cell phone number. When the provider sends a multi-factor authentication request to that number, if they do not receive any kind of signal back from that number within a certain amount of time that it got a message, it will temporarily disable the account and assume that that message was interceded somehow. That goes into the second preemptive defense right here. Provider temporarily disables user account. Now, in the case where that does not happen, like that's bypassed somehow, we have the message is not received in the allotted time. A lot of times when you request multi-factor authentication, you'll get a message and it will say like you should expect this within like 10 minutes max, right? If you request multi-factor authentication and it goes beyond whatever the time allotted is, then you contact your security team. Your security team temporarily disables your account and then investigates briefly just to make sure why it came in late, to see if maybe the message got intercepted, is someone trying to access your account, that kind of stuff. In the event that the attacker does intercede the message and you're unaware, they try to access your account. However, because they're not on the proper host machine that is registered with your account to your provider, once the network senses that your account is being accessed by an unauthorized host machine, it right then and there will temporarily disable your access. It will temporarily disable your account. Security team's notified. They do a little investigation, see what's going on. Next to that, as that happens, just as an extra thing to get as much intel about attackers as possible, whenever someone does connect via an unauthorized host machine, the provider will try and get the IP address at the very least of the attacker, just so they can block any further network traffic from that IP address as like a somewhat preemptive defense for future attacks from that IP address. That's pretty much the scope of this ADM right here. It's not super in detail, but it's somewhat fleshed out.
Okay. So, yeah, you had anything, Rod?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to just run this by you. Get your feedback.
So first, I'll just focus on the styling. In this model, if you see, all the three given statements are connecting to a single attack, so you can make them into assumptions. So in your code, you just move the three given statements into the assumptions block, and you should be good. Okay. That will clean up your model. Second is that your attack and defense titles are pretty long. Now, for small models, it's fine because when you convert this to a JPEG or a PNG image, it's large enough that you can still read it. But when you take a really big model, such long text starts becoming a readability issue. Because in order to accommodate this text, your graphing tool will try to move things around, and you'll start seeing a lot of arrows flying all over the place like spaghetti. So normally keeping your titles shorter should help. You can probably add a comment if you want to explain it with a longer text, or if you can move some of this into given, when, and then statements, that's also good. The idea is to just restrict the title to something that's good enough for people to understand what it means. If they want to go into the details, they can go read the ADM file.
Okay.
So, but for this model, it's fine. But as a general thumb rule, long term is that's what I'm recommending.
Okay, that's good to know.
On the model itself, there are certain assumptions you have made about the defense that are not clear. For example, when you say using Signal, WhatsApp, or any other secure messaging system, currently I haven't seen any MFA implementations that integrate with these. Not at least the popular ones that have such integration. And second is you're making assumptions about the network, cellular network, saying that you'll somehow get a confirmation that they received it or something like that. Now, the challenge with cellular systems is that SMS is not their priority. If you look at the history of cellular networks, initially when it came out in the 90s and early 2000s, networks used to charge you for SMS because it was a dedicated signal they had to send to your phone. So it used to take up bandwidth on their connection. What they later figured out was they can fit SMS into a control message. So it doesn't cost them anything to send an SMS. And that was the time when SMS actually became free. And that's why nowadays, if you see when you buy a connection, SMS is free because they are not incurring any cost on the SMS because it's included in their controlling signals. So chance of a network giving you confirmation back is something you should verify. Like dig into how networks work and confirm that that's true. If yes, then defense makes sense. If not, you may want to look at alternative defenses.
Okay.
And one thing that's also missing here is that you said attacker intercepts the second factor, but we haven't spoken about whether attacker has a primary factor, because when you say primary factor, it's username, password, and the one-time passcode is what is sent over SMS. Now, as an attacker, if I just intercept the SMS, I don't know which user it belongs to. I need to have more details about the user if I have to really use that one-time passcode from SMS to take control of his system. I haven't gone through the Reddit hack details itself, so I cannot say one way or the other about this. But these are some of the details you may want to include, because let's assume you're giving it to somebody on this call who has never read the article about the Reddit breach. What are the details that you want him to know before he reads the model is something you have to be clear on. If not, you'll have to include that in the model too. That makes it a little more complicated, takes more time, but it improves the readability and communication a lot.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Yep. Those are my 3 feedback items.
I'll do that. And yeah, on the article, on other websites I was using to research, they were talking about a mitigation being, rather than WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram, they were talking about things like soft tokens, like those apps like Microsoft Authenticator. That was one of the ones you have to put here. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So So email used to be one of the options. Nowadays, many people don't use it. Very few of them. SMS used to be a good option. Again, that's people are realizing that it's not that great. Third is what is called TOTP. That's the formal term for Microsoft Authenticator that you said. Time-based one-time password. So when you look for TOTP, you will see Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, all of them come into the picture. One more is using physical tokens like YubiKey. And the last one is basically using biometrics like Face ID, Touch ID on your iPhone or their equivalent on Android. And all of these are now being put behind a new standard called WebAuthn. So all these things are currently available in the market for deployment. So you should probably explore those and then expand these defenses also, because when you're working for a customer, sometimes they may know about the attacks, but what they may not know is what is the right defense or what is the best defense they can afford.
Okay.
So you'll have to do some research on existing standards, how are they implemented, and so on. So, but to start with, this is a good model.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Vinay, you talked about like shortening the titles of the attacks.
Yeah.
Would you, as we get into much more complex diagrams, would we want to be able to pair that with a narrative somewhere, or how would you envision being able to get the same information across as the diagrams become larger and much more like abbreviated?
Yeah. So there are two approaches you can take. If you're putting this into a report, let's assume you're exporting this into an image, and then it's part of another Word or a Google Doc. At that time, you can explain the diagram in a few sentences below, or you can explain the policy decisions down there. If you're not doing any of that, if you're just handing them over ADMs and ADSMs, putting them in comments is a great idea.
Okay.
So under the policy, when you're defining the defense, put 1 or 2 lines of comment saying the details about the defense, or where did you source from. One of the best practices I use for ADDB is on the top of the model, I put the link to the blog from where I got sourced my ADM content. That's a quick way to tell the reader that if you want more details, please visit this blog. They can use the ADM to quickly understand what's going on and then get into the blog to understand some of the details. So there are a few tricks and best practices that you can use.
Okay. So what we're going to do next is we do have a repo where we're putting this in. It's a private repo. What we could do is add you to the repo if you'd like. That way you can kind of see the progression of what we're putting together, because we're planning to work on this a little bit every day, and then just use it as a way we can interact. Outside of that, I don't have anything else I was going to bring up, unless Joe or I'm not sure if Greg is still on.
I do have just one quick question for clarification. So for this specific instance, these preconditions, you said these can just fit right here in the assumptions, correct?
Not in the policy assumptions, but model assumptions. Under the model, you have an assumptions heading, but the body is empty, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So under that, you can move these 3 given, and what will happen is under the model title, you will see a new assumptions block.
Okay. Roger that. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. So back to Rod's discussion on ADDB. Please definitely add me to the repo so that I can see what's going on. One thing I also wanted to ask was how do we discuss stuff about your ADDB repository? Like, do we have a separate Discord sub channel on your server that we can talk on? We need some kind of discussion forum if we want to talk about the ADDB.
We could use. I was going to suggest maybe we're all in that Discord channel, or if you had a public Discord channel that you wanted to use. I mean, we're really open. We just want to find the best way to communicate.
So let's use your existing Discord server, but probably add a new channel under it, because I don't want to flood all the members with this discussion. Like, you may have a lot of people who are there for other stuff. They may not be interested in this. So if we can create a new channel just for this subject alone, that should be good enough.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll create the channel, and then we'll invite you. And then the other thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and add you to the GitHub repo, and then Dimitri and I meet every, like Dimitri, Greg, and I, we try to meet every day to move the ball forward a little bit. So we should have updates in the Discord channel, and then the next time we meet in person, for the next live stream, we'll have much more to show.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Vinay. And I'll go ahead and close the meeting out then.
Sure.
Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you.
Vinay.
Take care.